Welcome back to my Golf Fantasy Podcast. I'm Ryan, that's Wendell. Got a lot to cover today. We got the Cognizant Open coming up, the Cognizant Classic, and we had the Genesis Invitational last week. So we're going to touch on the Genesis, the results of that. My boy, Jacob Bridgman, I've been talking about him for a couple of weeks now, came through for me. And then we'll get into the Cognizant DFS lineups for all of you to follow and who's going to be the picks this week. So got a very interesting field to choose from. But let's start with the Genesis Invitational. Wendell, how'd you like the event last week?
Yeah, it was another exciting finish, very similar to what we saw 2 weeks ago. It came down obviously to the final hole. Some exciting play from Rory and Kitayama. Obviously Bridgman kind of was holding on for dear life there. I think he kind of came into the fourth round and was just kind of like, okay, I just need to shoot, even par, -1, -2. Almost bit him. These guys were Kitayama went birdie par to finish, shot 64 on the final day. To be one back, and Rory went birdie uh, to shoot 67, both finishing kind of one behind him. Again, Bridgman 72 +1 really almost cost him there, but it was an exciting finish nonetheless. Made a little cinematic finish, which obviously all the fans enjoy.
Yeah, no, I've been high on Bridgman, like I said, for a couple weeks now. I had him in my DFS, and he just has, especially for the last two tournaments, like the Pebble Beach and the Genesis. I thought he had the makeup to perform well at these courses, and he started off -5, -7, -7, right? I mean, his 54 hole score pretty much win the tournament, right? So he has to go and shoot us, like you said, a 72 on the last day. And, I was getting nervous for him too, right? He was just hanging on while other players were, going real low, right? The 64 that was shot by Katayama, and honestly, I think he lost it for himself a little bit. I think he had a chance to really do something, and he just couldn't make birdies. But I thought even leading up and into the last round, the tentativeness of Bridgman almost cost him the tournament. And if Rory was on in the fourth round, he would have caught him. You
Yeah.
can't leave Rory, a 4 or 5 shot difference in the final round and think I'm just going to hit par. This guy's a shark. He's going to come after you.
100%. I mean, he had a bad bogey on 6, the par 3 there in round 4, and he missed a few putts. And he even said post round, he's like, I think I was overthinking the putter a little bit on some of these holes, playing a little too much break. He was a little inconsistent, and so had he had a few of those dropped for him, he would have won, and we wouldn't be talking about Bridgman. But obviously, big shout out to Bridgman, first PGA Tour win. It's marks another different winner for us this season. Obviously going through these signature events, continuing this trend in 2026 of a different winner. In my opinion, should have been Scotty should have won 3 or 4 tournaments here already this year, but those poor starts really cost him again this week, and he ended up breaking his top 10 streak, which is also unfortunate.
Yeah. And I mean, again, think about the last, 3 weeks, the first rounds he's been going, in the pluses and sometimes +3, 4, 5, right? What did he go? He went +3 to start
Yeah.
the tournament. And then he has to shoot -3 just to make the cut. Like he's on the cut line. And then he turns it up, goes -5, -6. It's like this first round is really killing him. Yeah, sure. He's still finishing, he had the T3, the T4, and what did he finish? Like 15 or something like that
Yeah.
this week.
Well, 12th. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. And it's like, but I mean, he's within striking distance. Those T2, T3, T4 finishes. He is 1 and 2 shots off the lead, shooting +3, +4 round 1. You know what? Scotty, his next tournament, I swear his goal is just to hit even. Just hit even par. Don't even get and that's where he's going to win it, because his rounds 2 through 4 are destroying the field every single week.
Yeah. Yeah. He's it's almost like it might be a mental thing for him. He needs to feel some pressure before he starts really turning it on, or it's just too easy for him these days. If he plays well 4 rounds, he knows he's going to win. I don't know what it is, but he's got to figure out the first round. I'm sure he's disappointed with some of these early starts as well. But if he turns it on, the field's got to watch out, because he's going to be tough to beat. The guy's coming from 6, 7, 8 shots back after the first and second day to come close to winning a lot of these events. He's going to be a tough guy to beat if he puts 4 together.
Yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk about him in a minute, looking
Yeah.
back at our DFS for last week. But for now, let's take a look at my golf guy. We didn't perform terribly, but again, we also didn't put up top 20 finishes in my golf guy this week. When you talk about Hovland and the misery that he put you through.
Yeah, yeah, you got me 3 weeks in a row here. This is a trend I'm not liking too much. Victor, again, his play wasn't amazing coming into this tournament, but I did really like his game. But he did again disappoint as he has in recent weeks, coming tied for 41st. Shooting, shot -3 for the tournament. He made the cut, obviously, but hover around par all, pretty much every single round. 69, 73, 70, 69. He hit a ton of greens in regulation. I mean, the guy put himself in scoring position. He hit 70% of his greens this week, which you'd think, okay, if a guy's hitting 70, 75% of his greens, he's probably going to be, in contention here come Sunday. Unfortunately, he just couldn't make putts. He averaged 1.9 putts per green, made 13 birdies, 10 bogeys, and 49 pars. The putting has always been a challenge for him, but had he made a few of these, it would have been a much different story. It's just unfortunate that he couldn't capitalize on his chances this week. And like you mentioned, I mean, for me, whenever you're taking a guy, especially I'll talk about in my DraftKings lineup, obviously, but you're taking a guy at 9,000. I need a better finish than tie for 41st. So it was a disappointing one for me, and ultimately got you another W, which it puts a sour taste in my mouth. But yeah, it's
Yeah,
not ideal.
I've been rolling with these W's mostly because your guys just can't get a good round in when they need to. But I'll take the win. And Fitzpatrick, he actually played pretty well. But the bogeys, he just can't keep bogeys off the scorecard. Every round, he was 2 or 3 bogeys deep. In the third and the fourth, then he couldn't put the birdies in to follow it. Right. So it killed him. His putting was very mediocre. His approach game was very mediocre. He was fine off the tee. But he just couldn't close out a hole. And we mentioned that this is a tough track, right? The playing the Genesis, it's a long course. It's a demanding hitting greens. The putting is also very difficult, and Fitzpatrick just couldn't put one together. So, but I mean, finished 24. That's not horrible. But and again, like you said, spending 20,000 or $9,000 on DraftKings for a player, you're expecting a top 10 finish. Because if you don't have that from your $9,000, spend, what are you going to do with that, right? You're hoping one of your or all of your low end guys are picking you up, but you need those guys to hit for you.
100%. I mean, the one trend I am seeing is I'm picking more guys that are making the cut than you are. But I mean, that's about the only win I can see for myself here so far.
Yeah.
But no, it's good. I'm going to get you this week. Both guys made the cut last week, had mediocre finishes, but we're getting some guy. We're picking some guys here. I think that have a good shot at winning these tournaments, and they're just kind of a few areas their game need to click, and they're going to be coming through for us.
I agree. I'm actually kicking myself. I didn't pick Bridgman. I was talking so high on him that I could
You've
have
been on him for
had a winner
weeks.
there. I
You've been on
know.
him for weeks. He's been in your DFS lineups, and guys who he's a guy that you've selected specifically week after week that you liked his game, and where it's been trending, and he showed what he's capable of last week, which is nice to see.
Yep. Well, let's get into it. Let's get into what our DFS signups looked like last week, and where we could have went wrong or where we did go wrong in some of our picks. And and you right off the top, just those first two picks are killer at the plus 9,000 and not even breaking 70 points. Like that hurts.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, anytime, like we said, I mean, you're taking guys. Your top two guys need to have great finishes, and Hideki, unfortunately, just had a really poor round two, and just never really had a great round. His best round was round four at 68 -3. Finished tied for 28th is fine, but I'd be much more okay with that being Adam Scott. Just crazy enough, Adam Scott had a really good 4 days and finished fourth, which kind of helped me out a little bit here. But yeah, anytime you're going to take those two guys in the 9,000 range, you need them to perform, be top 10 players. Those two, as well as Keegan Bradley, really hurt this lineup for me. Keegan obviously had a really bad first round, shooting 76, and followed it up with a 69 -2, but he missed the cut by 3 shots. Yeah, obviously that's going to hurt you anytime coming into the weekend where you don't have a full lineup get points. Had some really good bright spots in this lineup, though. I mean, I think Jake Knapp was a great value pick at 8,600. Finished sixth at -13. He had rounds of 65 in round two, 7 round three, and 66 round four. First round really is what didn't allow him to be in contention there on Sunday. Shooting 73 +2. Had that been an even par -1 round, I mean, he's right up there, right? So he played really well throughout the weekend. Really liked that pick. Adam Scott, another great value pick for me, came fourth. Max Homa, at 7,100, got coming tied for 37th. I'm fine with that. He made the cut. He had, he had a really good first 2 rounds. He was -6 through 2. Just in the weekend, he kind of fell apart, shooting +2 in round 3 on Saturday and even par on Sunday. So overall, I think I picked a lot of value guys that really came through. But this week, my elite guys didn't, which really hurt me.
Yeah, listen, I said it last week. I'm terrified to pick Max Homa because this guy's round swings are insane. He could play fantastic, and then the next round it's like he's never played the course before. So I for that, like, I talk about guys I'm benching, right? And I've benched Max Homa, and until he shows that he can have solid, and I'm, this is a prelude to our future discussion. You guys will see it soon, but Max Homa for me is a guy I can't trust right now, and I said it when you picked him, and it's a good value because if he could put 4 rounds together and he's $7,100 on DraftKings, oh, that could be a fantastic value pick, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it's that consistency that he just doesn't have right now.
Well, that's it.
But
It's such fine line here from like coming not in the money to having a great finish. Like if you think about it, like if I have Adam Scott and Jake Knapp who both come top 10, and then Matsuyama comes top 5, Victor Hovland comes top 5, and Keegan Bradley makes the cut, this lineup is probably a top 50 lineup, right? It's just a few things swing one way or another, and really changes the whole outlook of your obviously your finish here in DFS. So yeah, but how'd yours do?
Yeah, so I went the Scotty lineup because he went back to back tournaments where he had bad day ones, and then went on like nuclear day 2 to 4. And like we mentioned earlier, he did it again. He went +3 round 1. And I thought that he would have it figured out. Like, okay, let's not do this to myself again. And he did it to himself again. So he finishes, the T12, which, like if it's a, anywhere from 7 to, 8,500 spend guy finishing T12, you're like, okay, sweet. I got 90 points out of my mid-tier guy. But you're taking Scotty, you need him to be 120, 130 point player. And, he pulled off just under 90 there. It's just not enough, especially because, you need to hit those value guys like we're mentioning lower down. So it was very disappointing that he, and he didn't even really go nuclear on 2 to 4. He had the -3, -5, -6, good finish, but just kind of, it hurts your whole lineup, And then we talked about Fitzpatrick. He just couldn't get it together. Just too many bogeys, not enough good play, some tough bogeys too. So that kind of hurt. Then, and Pearson Cody getting 80 points, at 7,300. Like I said, I'm fine with that. The 80 to 90 points from a mid-tier guy like that, that's kind of what you're looking for, right? And he did well. I was fine with him. And remember, when I took Pearson Cody, I even said, like, he doesn't really fit well with this course, so I was kind of nervous about it, but he still played okay. And obviously, I took Bridgman being
Great pick.
my hero pick there, yeah, and fantastic. The subpar second, or sorry, like over par second, final round kind of hurt the overall total, right? He could have been in the 145, 150 even range that no one was going to be even close to him. He got to 135 and a half, or sorry, 138 and a half, but still, 6,800 DraftKings winner, right? That's what you need, right? That's winning you some money for sure. You find that guy in the 7,000s that's a breakout tournament, and you're landing in some money. And then
He's
yeah,
only 15% owned too, 15, 16% owned. I mean,
that's right.
that's going to win
Yeah,
you at the tournament
16.
for sure.
And then Hatsune,
Sasune.
he was on fire, and actually he started off the first round pretty good, and then he went and just struggled for the next 3 rounds. So he was trading off birdies and bogeys like crazy. 18 birdies, 15 bogeys on the tournament. He just couldn't get it together. He was flip-flopping. He had a 3 birdie streak at one point as well, and I
Yeah.
thought he was going to take off from there, and then he just couldn't get it together. And you know what? For me, that's a hot guy I'm picking at 6,800 again, thinking he's going to remain hot. And he was. He made the cut. He did okay. And, I thought I would take the advantage of a guy that's on fire, and he just didn't have the fire this time. Which is fine, he's almost 70 points. It's okay. The Hoagie one was fun. Okay. He's one of the first guys to tee off on Thursday, and he hit 3 straight birdies out of the gate. Now, it was raining, and it got miserable quickly on that Thursday morning, where he went then bogey on 4, bogey on, I think it was 7, and then they stopped his round on 9
Right.
when the rain cut in, right? And they had like a huge delay, like a few hours. And he came back out, and he just wasn't the same player, right? At one point, my drafted lineup, okay, was Hoagie birdieing the first 3 holes, Pearson Cody eagling the first hole, and I think it was like Bridgman go birdie, and that was what I had. Those were the 6 holes played, and
Take a
I was
screenshot of you being like in the lead of the
I
the
did.
event.
I did. I even showed my office next to me, and I'm like, hey, look, I'm gonna win some money this week, and I do this all the time. I jinx you, I jinx myself.
Yes, yeah. One of these days we're going to learn from our jinxing mistakes, but you get too excited. It's tough not to, right?
Yeah, I mean, when your guys start off like that, you think, oh, this guy's on. Remember 2 weeks ago I did it with you with Siwoo.
Yeah.
He was like -5 after 7 holes or something. I'm like, oh, he's on a hot streak, and you're like, shut up. And then
Yeah.
he finished -5 for the whole tournament, right?
Yeah. I think it's you. You're the direct correlation here to our lineups not
Yeah,
performing the way they
I
need
need
to
to
be.
shut my mouth. I mean, in everything I do in life, I need to shut my mouth. So, but let's take a look at the overalls. I had you this week again. I've got you 4 to the 6 so far, which is pretty good. Yeah,
Yeah.
sure. But
Yeah.
who was it?
Aaron
Who
Rye.
cost Aaron
Aaron
Rye and the
Rye.
Farmers Insurance.
At that point right now, the numbers are getting so far apart that one is not really making much of a difference. But
I
yeah,
mean, we've got
it's
115 points. And that takes 2 or 3 tournaments, and you're caught up if I struggle. So it's still tight. That's not far off.
yeah. There's just some and some trends here that are happening with both of our My Golf Guy and DraftKings results that I'm not very happy about. So I gotta turn this around and get in the winner circle again here, because you beating me is not acceptable.
Well, like our viewers, we take chances, and we have high hopes for a guy that doesn't work out. Everybody's got their opinion. You listen to any podcast, they're gonna tell you, oh, this guy this week and this guy that week, and then they don't hit on the thing I like about our podcast. And for all you listeners, is we hold ourselves accountable. Listen, we use the analytics too. We use our hearts, and sometimes they just don't work out. And if you could just use a golf tool to say, pick me the best lineup that's going to win, and it wins, everybody would win, right? So it takes some luck. It takes some talent as well. So we're advising everybody on the best hopes we have possible. That's about it.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Somebody might have listened here and jumped on the Bridgman train last week and got a W from this, right? So that's we might not be right on every guy, but there could be a few guys in our lineups that weren't on your radar that end up being on it that get you a win. So that's really what we're looking to do here.
Well, I mean, your Adam Scott pick too, if someone would have hit on that, that was a great value pick, right? So you put actually our two lineups together, and we're pretty high up on the leaderboard. Just we
Yeah.
can't pick one ourselves. That's kind of hitting,
Maybe we got to do a segment where we collaborate on a lineup and see how that does.
Yeah, yeah.
You pick three, I pick three or something.
Next week, that's what we'll
Yeah,
do. We'll have our own, and then we'll have like the collab
the collab lineup.
lineup and see if it wins, and then we can just go with that format from now on.
Yeah, I like it.
Well, let's get into the Cognizant Classic.
It was
I
much
liked when they
easier when it
called
was called the Honda Classic. Yeah.
it. Absolutely. I wish it was, but no, let's get into it. A very interesting course we got this week, challenging course. You want to go through some of the challenges? Because this is a tough track.
Yeah. PGA National here. It's going to be a tough one for everyone. R71, 7,223 yards. There's 3 par 5s, or 11 par 4s, and 4 par 3s. Par 3s are tough here. This is still not a super long course, but I'd say it's an average length course for the PGA by PGA Tour standards, but has a lot of strategic challenges that the players are going to face this week, especially with water, really tight landing areas, that often make, par premium on days where it's windy. So it's going to be a tough test. It historically doesn't yield ultra low scores here compared to other Florida courses that we might have been seeing here. Or in prior years. This tournament, really, the winning score is anywhere from -6 to -17. And this really is, again, weather dependent. If it's windy, there's a lot of water. Guys are going to get in trouble. We're going to see some big scores. And it's going to be one where, guys who have some, and we'll talk about some of obviously the main stats to look for in some of these players, guys whose accuracy is on this week, it's going to be crucial because they're going to have to hit some really tight spots and, keep it in play, because there's some spots around every green that's going to be troublesome for these players off of every tee shot. 15 of the 18 holes, there's water hazards that come into play. So it's going to take, players are really going to have to manage the risk consistently to score well. And aside from that, these are extremely large greens, so that's a plus for these players. They're Bermuda grass, and so it's going to be the greens aren't going to be too challenging to hit, but at the same time, you're still going to have to navigate those hazards, and your approach play is going to have to be on this week. Fairway widths too are average in width, but again, water and dog legs, accuracy is going to be, and strategy is going to be more important than guys who are bombing it off the tee this week. Yeah, anything you wanted to mention on anything on that, Ryan? Or
I'll get into it in a minute, but I want to know about the bear trap.
Bear trap's interesting. This is kind of very similar to Augusta's Amen Corner. This is an infamous 3-hole stretch at this golf course that's talked about a lot on the PGA Tour. It features 2 demanding par 3s, 15 and 17, and a par 4. 15th is a par 3, 179 yards, carries water, demands precision off the tee. 18th, par 3, 175 yards. Also is another one that's going to require precision to avoid the hazards around the green here. It's despite their modest yardages, like, these play significantly tougher than they look due to the water around all these greens and the tricky wind conditions. If it's windy and the guys don't hit these greens, there's going to be a lot of bogeys and a lot of doubles here. It's really an exciting stretch. Like, obviously, you see Amen Corner a little early on at Augusta. This is, towards the end of guys' rounds, right? So this is really going to make or break a lot of these players' rounds, this 3-hole stretch, and it's going to be one to keep an eye on. Historically, there's not a ton of birdies on this 3-hole stretch, and so guys are really just going to be holding on, trying to shoot even par across these 3 holes and get into the clubhouse. So guys scoring, it's going to be those first kind of 15 holes, first 14 holes, and then it's kind of hold on for dear life here. So it definitely makes it for an exciting finish again here with those, and looking forward to seeing how the guys perform.
Yeah, it's it. In saying all that, we picked a few things to look at for key stats. And number one is the strokes gained on approach. So you mentioned 15 of the 18 holes have water. 11 of the 18 greens have water nearby, right?
Yeah.
Where a mishit could put you in there, or putting the ball up in the wind and having the wrong, draw or fade on it. It could be very poor for you. And bunkers surround almost they do have bunkers on every hole, and a lot of the holes have big bunkers, right? So misses isn't going to put you in the rough. It's going to put you in the bunker. So it's very key that you put the ball on the green. Now the greens are big, like you were mentioning, so it's going to be easy to necessarily like hit the green, let's say, but it may not be easy to be very close proximity to the hole, right? Which actually leads us into the second stat that we wanted for strokes gained is strokes gained around the green and putting, right? And the reason why we pick both of them is for the two reasons. When you're on your approaches, if they're not great, you could be playing out of the sand, out of the rough, trying to save pars.
Yeah, you could be dropping and hit, from the water and trying to get up and down to save par or bogey. That's going to be crucial here with all the water in play, right?
That's right. So the around the green play is going to be very, very key, especially if, the wind picks up and it's going to be harder to hit those greens. You're going to need to work on your around the green play. But for the guys who are hitting the greens, the stroke seeing putting is going to be key because the proximity of the hole is probably going to be very deep, right? So you're going to be putting, 30, 40 footers, and the three putt avoidance is going to be key here, right?
Hmm.
You want to get that ball close. You want to make sure that, you have that easy par putt or bogey safe potentially, depending on what hole you're at. And so it's very key for those putting stats to be on point this week. And then the last one you mentioned may even be the most important is the accuracy off the tee. The water holes, almost every one of them, you got to put the ball like in the fairway. The hazards, the dog legs, right? So that's why when Wendell, you're talking about it earlier, is the actually being so important because you can't just bomb it out there. When you're trying to do precision, we talked about this when we talked about Pebble Beach, right? Pebble Beach was the lowest driver usage off the tee on tour. Well, this isn't far off, right? So you're going to have a lot of guys that are going to have to shape their shots, and it's a right to left tees, and they get very narrow landing areas.
Hmm.
So it's going to be tough for a lot of players. It does demand, so the guys who have all the shots in their bag, players like I'll joke around like Bubba Watson, lefty guy couldn't hit a draw if his life depended on it, right? Those types of players will not perform well here. Guys who can play the, let's take Sky Scheffler. He's not in the field this week, but he can perform any shot, right? Those guys will be successful in this tournament. And if you don't have that, you're going to have a tough time getting the ball off the tee, landing it in a nice spot for a easier approach. So it's going to be a very tricky off the tee type game. It probably doesn't play well for like a Rory McIlroy who likes to bomb it out there. Again, not in the field, but those are the types of player comparisons that you're going to want to look at, when you are thinking of who I'm going to take this week.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's an interesting one too, as we're about to jump into it. But one thing we didn't really mention, this field isn't full of elite players. Well, it is. Like, these guys are all great, don't get me wrong, but we don't have the big names like we've been seeing in the last 5 or 6 events, signature events, right? Like this event is a little bit more watered down with guys who are obviously towards the bottom of the standings in the PGA and looking to kind of make a name for themselves, that kind of stuff. So it'll be an interesting one, seeing how some of these guys perform that maybe haven't played that much yet. So something to look at for sure.
Yeah, I agree. It could be a relatively unknown or another first time winner, this
Yeah.
week.
Yeah.
Very, very good field with a lot of guys that, when the premium guys aren't there, you could really perform well,
It's an opportunity. It's an opportunity for some.
Well, so let's get into my golf guy then. And say you didn't pick a guy the opportunity. You actually picked a guy that I'm benching, and it's actually the second time in 3 weeks you're picking a guy that I have on my bench.
Yeah, I really like to go against your judgment on guys and give guys a second chance here and get them off the bench and into my lineup. Hasn't worked out for me. That being said, when I picked them, they performed better for me than they have for you in the past. So that's obviously positive. But yeah, taking a guy this week, obviously, in Max Homa. He's he's a guy that I really like at this course for a number of different reasons. He just tied for 8th here in 2024, 6th in 2022. He's coming off a tie for 37th finish at Riviera. He's got good course history here, and obviously in some of my picks here for my guys, I like that. Max has been a little inconsistent, as you mentioned previously. He puts together some great rounds, puts together some really bad rounds, which has really not allowed him to catapult to the top of the leaderboards in some of these previous tournaments. But I think he's still really underpriced for his talent. When we get into DraftKings, I'll talk a little bit more about that. But he's still a strong iron player when he's in rhythm. Yeah, he's a proven winner in difficult setups. Some of his strokes gain metrics, approach, the top 35 guy. Putting on Bermuda, which I think is going to be key this week. He's really comfortable. He's a top 30 guy putting on Bermuda. Picks up almost half a stroke whenever he plays courses with Bermuda greens. Picks up almost half a stroke around the greens. And tee to green, he's also a top 30 guy. So if his putting spikes this week, I think he's got top 5 upside. And really like his previous course history and results here, as well as his game. Again, I think he's trending in the right direction. He still doesn't have it all there for 4 rounds, but he's a guy, again, like we like to take him, my guy, who's not on everyone's radar, not a top 5 or top 10 consensus. Max Homa's outside of that, and I think he's a guy who can jump in and surprise people this week, and so that's why I took him as my guy.
Yeah, like I said, he's on my bench, and he definitely has the potential. And if he puts 4 rounds together, he's as good as anybody on tour, realistically, right? And that's just what he has to do. Actually, you know what's funny? If you just look up Max Homa clips, he gives a lot of, I guess, like coaching lessons verbally about the mental game of golf, and he's actually very intelligent about the mental game of golf. But like all of us, we can say, oh, I know how to do it. Can you actually do it? And I think that's his struggle. He knows when he's getting in his own head, and I think he struggles trying to get out of his own head, but he understands it. And as soon as he kind of finishes that whole process, I think he can, and hopefully he finishes that process before he gets too old. He can put up some good performances. So I hope he's in his head properly this week instead of not proper.
I know you don't love him, for this pick, but that's okay. I like going against, again, your judgment here, and I think he's going to surprise some people this week. But we'll see. Who do you got for my guy?
So I took Mackenzie Hughes, and a couple reasons. So the biggest thing for Mackenzie is his around the green play is top 10 on tour. Okay. And I think, this could be a very big tournament for precision around the green, right? I think it's going to be a tough trying to hit the greens in regulation. And I like his game for that. He's also playing pretty well. And the one thing he does is his bogey avoidance is pretty good, right? He's a top 20 player on bogey avoidance. And you're going to have bogeys here. So I like his game for this. The one thing I think is probably the thing that's going to kill him if it does is putting, right? And as long as I don't need him to drill 30 footers or 40 footers, even the 20 footers, I don't care if he hits those. If he puts it close to the hole and if he lands off the green and puts it tight, that's what I want, right? This guy might come in at -10 to finish the whole tournament. -10 could be a top 5 score, right? Especially if it gets to tough conditions. And he typically plays well in challenging conditions. So I really like it. His approach game is also really good. He's better than half the field. He's I think top 60 in approach. So I do like Mackenzie Hughes this week. It's funny. I had a pick that I just picked, and then I realized how high up he was Michael Bjornsson. He's got some great stats for this, but I think he's like top 5 favorite on this. So
with the guys dropping out or deciding not to play this week, who were supposed to, I really catapulted him into like a top 10 play this week. When I think he was slightly outside with like Bridgman and all those others that were supposed to play this tournament. So yeah, there's definitely, and this is kind of what's going to get interesting is where some of these guys are ranked in DFS and their odds for this tournament, just because of the field and how weak it is. Like Thorbjorn Bornsson's a guy, if you didn't look at it, you would never think he was a top 10 play this week, but he is. So
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. So, but
Yeah.
you know what? Mackenzie Hughes is someone I really like. But we'll get into that right now, actually, with our DFS lineups. Since I was the winner, do I get to go first?
You do. You do get to go first. I think we haven't been on that trend lately, but it's something we started with that we'll jump back on. So why don't you fire away and tell us about your lineup this week?
Like you said, yesterday I picked a lineup, and two of the guys dropped out. Right, so I had Bridgman because that's been my guy. I'm riding him. Then he drops out, and then I had Patrick Rogers, and then he dropped out. So I was like, okay, I got to switch this up. Now I always had Ryan Gerard in my lineup. So now he's just he is actually the highest value pick on DraftKings at the moment, or like highest dollar wise. His approach game is fantastic, top 10 strokes gained approach, right? Which I think is gonna be great. His accuracy off the tee is top 50, right? So he gets it. He knows how to play this. His putting's top 50, right? His only thing around the green is going to be challenging, but with his strong approach play, I would hope and expect that he's on the green more often than not, and not having to try to challenge for these around the green plays where that's probably the weakest part of his game. If he could hit greens, this guy's going to put it close to the hole. He's going to make pars. He's going to make birdies. And his solid approach play could definitely put him close enough to the hole proximity on a lot of these holes in order to try to score, right? So number one, I think by far, and he's playing well, right? I took him 2 weeks ago, and I said, he is hot, and I think he finished top 25. So I do like Gerard in his game right now. The next guy I took was Hogard. And now I'm super high on Hogard. And the one thing, I took him a few weeks back on a course where you could bomb it. And this is the strength of his game. He does super well off the tee when he's got room. And this is going to be his Achilles heel this week, is if he can't be accurate. His accuracy is, subpar. He's I think in the 130s in accuracy, which is killer. But his approach play is top 20. His around the green is top 60. His putting's top 30. So as long as he can perform well off the tee and not get into too much trouble, I'll take this guy coming in from anywhere on the fairway, even out of the rough into approach play. He's fantastic, and he's also playing well coming into this tournament. And then my third guy. So I had these three guys set, right? I liked all three of these guys. Michael Bjornsson. So by the way, when Bridgman took himself out of the tournament, that's when I put Hogard in, right? I didn't have him in my initial lineup. Hogard was the guy I put in next. Then I had Michael Bjornsson, a couple weeks ago, played fantastic, top 5 finish, threatened to win. And he's playing unbelievable right now. I think he's one of the top young golfers on tour. And when you listen to commentators talk about him too when he's playing, it's nothing but praise for this guy. And I really like his game. So his best play, like I was mentioning with Mackenzie Hughes, which I'll talk about in a second, is around the green. He's fantastic. Around the green, he's great. His accuracy off the tee is very good. His approach play is a little bit subpar. He's barely hitting 100 there, but with his accuracy off the tee and his around the green play, even when he gets into trouble, he's going to be saving pars. So I'm definitely thinking he's got the game to outperform a lot of his competitors here. So I really like Thorbjorn Bjornsson pick. I had him initially as well. Kenzie Hughes, I talked about, again, around the green play is where he's going to perform well. As long as he gets the putter moving, he can definitely shoot low. So I like that. And so the thing is, with Patrick Rogers coming out, I did drop down on the initial pick with the Hogard, and I did move up to Thorbjorn Bjornsson, right? I had another guy a little bit lower down. I moved up to Thorbjorn Bjornsson, so that allowed me to put him in there when Rogers dropped off. So I had the high guy and the low guy, and I got two guys in the middle with Hogard and Thorbjorn Bjornsson. So I'm kind of actually, at the end of the day, I think I'm more happy with this, as much as I was so high on Bridgman, I couldn't not put him in there. Now I got, I think, two very solid players in that situation. SH Kim, Sun Hyun Kim, playing fantastic. He's made the cut, I believe, in every event that he's played this year. His approach game is the worst part about his game. Okay, he's in the 150 ranks, but every other stat here, he's top 30 around the green, putting, and driving accuracy. He has, as long as he can hit any approaches anywhere on the green, he's going to be coming in low. So I really like his game. Very good. $7,000 for a guy that has great core stats here. And think about, a lot of the players that aren't playing, Scotty, Rory, all these guys, they eat up the top 10, top 20s in a lot of these stats. So when you're talking that he's 30th in driving accuracy, well, in the field today, he's number 10. He's number 15, right? So he's better than, 80% of the field potentially in his accuracy, although it's, let's say a 30, right? Because he's not competing against some of those guys that are, let's say, higher than him on this list. And then I finished with Andrew Putnam. And the one thing that made it very simple, this guy's number 1 in driving accuracy. Number 1 on tour in driving accuracy. His approach play, 50. Pretty good, right? His around the green and putting is going to be his biggest downfall here. But at 6,800, I was looking around, and I could have got into this, 72, 7,300, but he was in that price range. So he was my last pick. He was the best guy on the board, and I took him at 6,800. It gave me an extra $400 to play with. I didn't want to play with it. I looked around. I didn't like anything else. And we were high on Andrew Putnam earlier in the year. Remember, we were talking about him, and I think he had a top 5 performance earlier in the year.
I like him, especially if you got to grab a guy under 7,000. I think Andrew's got the game to do well here. That's kind of what I was going to ask you, which you kind of clarified in your as you were going through your lineup there, is as you were taking some of these guys out, because you look at Bridgman. I mean, his salary was 10,200. Rogers was 7,700, and you kind of had to maneuver and kind of change your lineup a little bit because those guys withdrew, and ended up, like you mentioned, seemed to balance it out even better and kind of create a lineup that you felt stronger about. Even though you did have to pick some of those guys in the sevens and high sixes. I think you found, S.H. Kim and Andrew Putnam. I think those two guys are really well suited for this week. So great how you kind of balance that out. But I know that always kind of makes it complicated when you get withdrawals. So
and when I first had it, and I had like the 2 top guys, and then 2 mid guys, and then 2 bottom guys, I was like, okay, I kind of like this. And then when the changes allowed me to go to 3 top end guys, 1 mid, and then 2 lower end, I was like, okay, actually it gave me potential higher ceiling than I might have got out of my other lineup. And how often the guys went back-to-back events. So like Bridgman was kind of like I could not put him in. So when he backed out, I was kind of half happy, but I was like, okay, I don't have to take him now because I love his game, and he may not have performed well coming off the win. This allowed me to go with a little bit more balanced lineup with maybe a potential higher ceiling too.
Yeah, no, I like it. It's again an interesting tournament this week, just where there's a lot of guys, a lot of popular names aren't playing, and so it's making us have to kind of dig deep and look at some of these guys that maybe haven't. Not that they, like, a lot of these guys have been on our radar over the last previous events, but just maybe haven't cracked our lineup because we like somebody fractionally more. So no, I like the lineup. I think it's constructed, solid construction there, and interested to see how it plays out for you.
So for yours, I mean, it looks like you didn't have to go quite as low as I did. You may have a little bit less of a floor than I may have in some of these guys you picked.
Yeah. So my lineup, especially once I saw some of the guys who were opting out of this tournament, I mean, I was obviously on some of those top guys, Griffin, Bridgman, Scott. It's interesting too, because I talked about last week how, like, Matsuyama, they haven't really changed his salary week to week. He's always a guy in the low to mid 9,000s, and then you get to a tournament like this, and Bridgman's 6,800. Next thing you know, he wins, and they put him at 10,200, which has been a salary that's higher than Matsuyama the whole year. But it is obviously relative to the field that's playing and the other guys too. I get that. But just to kind of go back to my point on Matsuyama, I mean, like, it's you'd think that they would have obviously adjusted him relative to some of his previous performances. Anyway, that being said, I mean, my lineup really was constructed this week. I mean, due to the slightly weaker field and unknown to some of these players. I really wanted to go with a slightly more top heavy lineup with my favorites. You went even more heavy than I did, but I was really trying to lean on guys who We're precision first, solid iron striker heavy lineup with the majority of my picks having proven results here and obviously experience at PGA National. So leaned into all the same metrics that we typically do: strokes gained approach, tee to green control, par four scoring. Players who you typically perform well in windy conditions as well as putt well on Bermuda greens. And then avoiding big numbers. So bogey avoidance too was something I leaned into. So first pick here, Shane Lowry, 9,900. He's now the consensus kind of favorite to win this week. Over the last 4 years here, he's got 3 top 5 finishes coming. Again, over the last 4 years, 3 top 5 finishes. So he's proven here. He knows the track. He plays well in the windy conditions. And then he's coming off tied 24th at Riviera last week and tied for 8th at Pebble. So his game's in the right, obviously he's playing well and he's got proven performance here. So really for me, it was kind of a no-brainer to take him. Strokes gained approach, he's top 15 on tour. Tee to green, top 10 guy. Bogey avoidance, top 20. And par 4 scoring in that 400 to 450 range, he's a top 25 guy as well. So this is like a classic Shane Lowry setup course, I feel like. It kind of gives you that Scottish kind of Irish vibe that he's so used to playing in those windy conditions and having to hit tight spots and kind of keep it out of trouble. So I think he's gonna do well here again this week. My number 2 guy, 9,700, was Ryan Gerard. You already did a great job explaining him, so I'm not going to get too much into it. But he did come tied 4th here in 2023. I'm coming off a tied 24th finish at Riviera last week. He's showing strong early form. He's got great history at this event, and he's one of the best on tour when it comes to proximity from 100, 150 to 200 yards. And so I think there's going to be a lot of that this week. You mentioned obviously his great strokes gained approach numbers. Putting, it could be a little volatile there, but he's a guy who I think this week is going to be the perfect kind of PGA National grinder that's going to be able to score low. So another easy pick there. So those are my 2 kind of anchors within my lineup, and things start to get a little interesting after the first 2 because I really have to start looking for some value plays. You went to guys like Putnam and SH Kim. I wanted to balance it out a little bit more with guys that, again, were proven solid performances here, as well as whose games set up well if they're on to play well here. And so wanted to go with guys like Max Homa, who's at 7,900. Again, he's ranked there, again, not because of how he's playing this year, but because of his previous experience, as well as his obviously ability. He has the ability to, be a much better pick here or have a much higher salary. And so he was tied for 8th here in 2024, 6th in 2022. He's coming off tied for 37th at Riviera. Obviously, a poor weekend for him because he set himself really well after round 1 and 2. But I do think he's underpriced for his talent level if he comes on all 4 days. Again, this is the mental factor. We'll see. But he's really, when it comes to last year and this year, I'm kind of combining a little bit, but strokes gained approach the last 2 years, he's been top 35 guy. Putting on Bermuda is a top 25 guy. So, that alone, I think if he can continue to roll the flat stick this week on Bermuda, is going to give him a huge advantage, strokes gained advantage here this week. And so I think he's got, honestly, at a sub 8K pick, I think he's a guy with top 10 upside. And so if he plays this week the way he can, and so I'll take that all day. Then I'm going with a guy really off the board here in John Parry. A lot of guys might have to look him up. He played a lot on the DP World Tour over the last couple of years. This year, he's played pretty solid. He's made the cut at every event he's played. Tied for 19th at Sony Open, tied for 56th at American Express, tied for 43rd at the Farmers, and tied for 35th at Waste Management. I think he's a sneaky fit here because he's got that kind of European Tour background. He's really comfortable in the wind. He's a very strong iron player. He's methodical in his approach to the game. He's not overly aggressive, which I think is going to be important with water in play here. He's not going to be afraid to lay up when he has to, and he's really solid from 150, 200 yard range. So if we're talking some of the data I was able to grab on him is, again, a collaboration between his Euro and PGA Tour crossover trends. So he's if you look at it, he's a top 45 guy here in strokes gained approach, top 50 tee to green, above tour average, around the middle when it comes to proximity within 200 yards. Bogey avoidance, he's one of the stronger players this week in the field. He's above average in driving accuracy. So he's not elite by any means in any category. He's very well balanced. And I think just, again, based off of his European background and playing in windy conditions, he's going to be comfortable here. So and with his previous, if he's going to make the cut, a guy at 7,500, a guy who's going to make the cut, he's obviously proven that he can come in the top 20 with his finish at the Sony Open earlier this year. If I can get a guy to come in the top 20 at 7,500, I'm going to be real happy with that pick. So I think he's going to be low owned too, just because he's a little bit unknown. So that obviously plays into it as well for me. I like kind of having those, sneaky picks that nobody else has really taken that are 3 or 4% owned. If they hit, it's great. So after him, went with a guy who you were on earlier in the year that I think is benched for you probably too. But Nico Echevarria at 7,400. Some of his recent results here, tied for 21st in 2024. This year, he's had some solid finishes since you benched him, tied for 8th at Pebble. And he's had some mixed results, obviously, in 2026. But a couple reasons why I like him here. He's actually an excellent Bermuda putter. He's top 20 on the tour when he's putting on Bermuda greens. His approach game, he's in that kind of top 40 range. Florida events, he's historically played very well. And so, these things, I think with Nico, as a stroke, when it comes to kind of stroke gain approach, if he putts well, I think he's an extremely solid value play. If he can give me a Pebble Beach performance this week at 7,400, sign me up all day. So I think I like where his game's trending. I like how he's comfortable kind of on these greens. Obviously, he's proven that he can play in some windy conditions similar to like he had at Pebble. And so another reason why I took him, obviously, is because of that. After him, I get a little bit more, a little bit more uncomfortable, but still kind of comfortable with Tom Kim at 7,400. Some of his previous experience here, he's got like some pretty good results. Tied for 26 in 2024, tied for 16th in 2023. And then he's coming off of a decent finish last week at Riviera, tied for 34th. He hasn't had any super strong performances as of yet this year, but he's made majority of his cuts. He's a guy who over the last year has been top 30 in strokes gain approach. Bermuda greens, again, another key stat here. He's a top 20 Bermuda green putter. So if you're seeing the trend here, all of my guys are really top 25 Bermuda green putters. I want to stay consistent with that. And he's a guy who's typically top 20 in par 4 efficiency from 400, 450 yards. He's a very good, and he doesn't make big numbers on holes. He can get away from himself sometime to make a few bogeys, but he's a really good guy to kind of avoid those big number disasters, especially, when it comes to the bear trap. And so I think he's a safe pick at 7,400 with a decent floor, but has the potential for a really high ceiling. So he's kind of my, shot in the dark, but a guy who I think has been consistent enough that I was willing to take a flyer at 7,400 on him. So that's kind of what rounds out my team here this week.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. I saw John Perry's stats, and I liked him too. And Nico's not on my bench right now. I was disappointed with him early, but yes, that performance at Pebble took him off my bench for sure. And I'm still hesitant to take him, and I'm glad you did, and I hope he comes through for you because I really like this guy. He finished last year very well and just had a slow start. I think he's going to play fantastic this year.
Here's a question for you. He doesn't do well for me this week. Say he doesn't make the cut. Now is he benched for you, or because he was on my lineup, he's not?
If he doesn't do well for you, I'm promoting him.
I gotcha.
Yeah, as long as he does well for me, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, gotcha.
You know what? But look at our lineups, okay? So if you missed everybody from 8,000 to 9,600, and I skipped everybody from 75 to 92, we took nobody in the 8,000s. And, reel off some of these. Daniel Berger. Actually, let's just start with Brooks at 9,000, right? That's an interesting play that we both skipped over.
It's funny you say this because I had Aaron Rai in my lineup, but then I remembered what he did to me. So at 8,800, but then I remember what he did to me, even though he's had some, he played well the last couple of weeks. He's a guy that I was looking at that ended up, again, I think it was just more of a gut feel like, okay, I can't, you did me wrong. I don't want you in my lineup type deal. But I did have him in there originally. But yeah, Aaron Rai, Christian Bezudenhout. Then there's guys like Will Zalatoris coming off surgeries, playing in his, I think, first event. I didn't want to take a shot on Will.
No, he played in a couple earlier and did okay.
Right. Oh yes, he did play in American Express.
Yeah, that's right.
He was cut at Farmers, tied for 18th in American Express. Yeah. No, I see here. Yeah, he's just, again, a guy who hasn't. I'm just not really confident in his game right now because he's played a little bit. I think he's just been a little inconsistent.
And I'd say the one that I thought of in the 8,000s was Smalley. Alex Smalley. We were both, had him in a couple lineups earlier in the year, and he did pretty well for us. And then he kind of fell off a little bit, so that's why I didn't want to take him. but he's hit 4 or 5 cuts recently. He's been performing pretty well. But yeah, I mean, there's listen, and even like up at 9100, Nygaard Peterson playing very well, right? So
Hmm.
like there are a lot of good guys in here, but for me, I don't know why it is for you that you kind of skipped out on. It could be just lineup structure right now. When you go too low, all of these guys have performed well and not performed well in recent events, and Daniel Berger's one of them. And you have a famous quote, from 2 weeks ago where I took him, I was really high on him, then he shit the bed on me.
Hmm.
But I think that's what separates maybe this tier of list that where we avoided that 8,000 to 9,100 was all of these guys can perform. And for me, I wasn't confident whether it be previous picking experience or their games being so like hot cold. I couldn't rely on them to give me a solid performance this week.
Yeah, no, that's exactly the same reason. I looked at a few there that were on my short list, but none that I really, really, really liked. And if I did go with those guys, that it really wouldn't have allowed me to take kind of Shane Lowry and Ryan Gerard, or I would have had to go low, like into the mid 6,000s for a couple guys. And at that point, I'm looking at guys like Webb Simpson, obviously Andrew Putnam. I do like him. Adam Hadwin's in that 6,700 range. Just to kind of give you Patrick Fishburne, just to kind of give you a few guys that like, hey, if I was going to go down there, Svensson's down there as well. Those are the guys I would have to look at. And I don't really like any of those guys as much as I do Nico and kind of Tom Kim right now.
And you know what? The only guy down in that range, other than obviously I took Putnam at 68, another guy at 68 was Blades Brown, right?
Yeah,
You
yeah. The
remember the round
young
he put up
Blades,
at
young Blades Brown. Yep.
Yeah. And if you look at his stats, I think he's like number one in one of the either I think it's like approach play or something like that. Just because of that one round he played, I think it was Farmers Insurance where he was playing with Scotty and Siwoo, I think final round, and he just couldn't hang on. But that was one where I was like, do I take him because I know this kid's got game, but is he ready yet? He had a solid performance, but now, he may have a little more cameras on him. And the day he
Yeah.
had cameras on him, he didn't really perform well. I need a couple more good showings from like a Blades Brown in order to try to take him. But that could be a very interesting pick if he continues hot and puts up a solid performance. That's a 6,800 pick too. I'm just not confident. Just like, we talked about the 8,000 guys. I don't have the confidence to say, oh, I'm going to put this guy in the lineup and I expect him at the top of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's the exact reason why I didn't go that way as well. I'd rather guys in those that I'm taking flyers on that are either proven previous performers at this event or who are trending in the right direction, making cuts, doing well right now. And I think a lot of those guys are either one-offs or ones that are super inconsistent that I didn't want to even gamble with this week. So yeah, it's an interesting point though. Why we chose to kind of stay away from some of those gaps and keep certain guys out of our lineup.
Yeah, well, let's hope it works out for us and give our fans something to talk about when our lineups hit well. But no, I mean, I think we put up solid lineups this week. It's going to be a great event in the sense that a lot of people love watching like low scores. I think this one you're going to be watching it for like the guy who's going to win is going to be a premier approach putting type game, even off the tee, the accuracy, like you're going to get a solid golf round from the winners. Absolutely.
Yeah, it's going to be a grind. It's going to be a mental grind for a lot of guys, and it's going to be exciting to see guys go through the bear trap here. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be another exciting event, and looking forward to getting back in the W column against you this week.
Well, I doubt that's going to happen, so we'll see. Anyways, everybody enjoy the tournament. I know Thursdays is our favorite day around here, and get the tournament kicked off. The hope of us winning dies off in the afternoon, but Thursday morning is always my favorite morning.
Yeah, Thursday morning's our favorite, and Friday is disappointment. And Sunday. Yeah. No, best of luck, everyone. And get your DFS lineups in and hope you do well this week.
Enjoy, guys.
Thanks.